Damn, Jordan wasn't ready. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, November 3rd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks, and we will certainly touch on PrizePicks in a little bit. But first, before we do anything at all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. 11 games. We have a ton to get through. Let's start here. Adam, how you doing?
Been a little bit better, but
yeah,
overall doing pretty well. Glad that Donovan Mitchell did well last night. It's pretty unusual for me and Alex to disagree on any one player by a lot, and so when we do, I'm happy to be the one that's right. But doing pretty well. How are you, Josh?
No complaints. Woke up feeling fresh, energetic. I was ready to tackle this day, and then I forgot that it was an 11 gamer. I was like, today's going to be a long one, but it's fun. I like talking about basketball. All of these games are like relatively close. We don't have any like true broken games on the slate. So lots to talk about. A couple spots where value is massive. We will be talking about all of it. Well, Edson Kuzanga from Zimbabwe in chat right now. That's far away. I had somebody from Jordan in my process show stream this morning. We're going international, man.
Yeah, that's a long way.
That's fun. It's fun to see. I like seeing like when people look. Our chat is like 99.2% men. I assume like 95% United States. It's always fun to see someone pop up being like, "Hey, I'm from nowhere near you right now, watching your content at a time that is the dead opposite for me." It's like the guy from Jordan was like, "It's 1 p.m. here." I was like, "It's 6:45 here," or whatever it was. Anyway, anything interesting for you last night?
No, won in cash, lost in tournaments, broke even overall. Went to the bar, didn't even sweat it. So no, just nothing at the top. Jake won the hockey tournament though, if you didn't see that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. So a real hockey tout finally got it?
Yeah, I decided to, let him have one.
What is that up top?
20.
Okay, nice. Jake, congrats.
Yeah, he had gotten second. The night that I won, he got second.
I think that's why he heads up our hockey content. I think he's pretty good at this.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Yeah. Great job. I never get to talk to him anymore. It's kind of a bummer. Like when I first got here, it was basically just me, him, and Spags doing shows every day for like 6 months. Then the FanVice guys came in. And even still, I was doing shows every day with Jake. And now I don't think I've done a live show with Jake in like a year and a half.
I was thinking that the other day, the night that I got first and he got second, I was just like, man, I do not know the last time I did a show with Jake.
I probably shouldn't bring this up on the stream for you personally, but I know what your answer is going to be either way. Have you ever even thought about doing any hockey shows?
No.
Okay. No, I'll just keep going. Obviously, I know you're not signing up for hockey shows. You might not sign up for basketball shows if given the opportunity.
No, I mean, it's not even like a I hate work thing. Like, I would bring no value to that.
Okay. Yeah, just like somebody asked me in Discord about doing like a Champions League or like a Premier League soccer show. And I was just like, I'm a big fan. I like to play it. I love to watch it. I don't think that I'm qualified to talk about it. Like, I don't have enough knowledge of the game to bring like intricacy to it about what's happening, even though it's the sport I want to watch the most.
I don't watch hockey. I mean, I like watching hockey, but like, I don't watch it regularly. I don't know who the players are. I don't know who I'm playing every night. Like, no, there's nothing I could add to any sort of hockey content.
Right. Gotcha. All right, let's dive into this. We have 11 games to break down. We have the extra time to do it. An hour and 10 minutes from this moment forward. We got to get through 11. Do we have ownership yet? I haven't looked. Have you looked?
No.
Great work. 47 minutes ago. The team is up and at 'em today. DraftKings in, FanDuel in. Everything looks pretty similar to what I was getting. So here we go. Portland Trailblazers at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Blazers 3.5 point favorites in Cleveland, 220 total. I don't know what else to say at this point anymore. So you guys know the drill. Damian Lillard is $8,300 on FanDuel. You're going to play him again at that price tag. On DraftKings, highest owned player coming from Portland is 10% owned Norm Powell. We're going to talk about these games a little bit differently, guys, just in case this is the first time you're ever seeing it. It's an 11-game slate. Digging into the fifth best play on an individual team is just not really all that interesting. We really need to focus on the guys that are the best. Otherwise, there's probably 60 different dudes you could rotate through the next 60 spots in your lineup. There's not a lot to add there. So other than Dame's FanDuel price, which we're clearly in agreement is not correct for him, even though it hasn't been great for him so far, what else do you see from Portland?
Not much of anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of just the same, Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, they all produce at a high level. Lillard and McCollum play a lot of minutes, but on DraftKings, they're priced where they should be. You're not really even getting much of a discount at this point on Dame for his bad shooting. I still think he makes sense in tournaments just because people are going to shy away from him because he's been awful to start the season. He's projected for 6% ownership. He's going to get better. He's not going to shoot 23% or whatever he's shooting from three for the entire season. So there's still a massive ceiling on him at low ownership, but the price tag hasn't really dropped that much. So he's still, for his average production, he's still not a great value.
And we're on the same page for FanDuel, correct? Completely different story than DraftKings.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really have anybody popping up with any sort of super interesting spot other than, Norm Powell getting the ownership makes sense at 4,600. It's just an underprice on DK, but there's nothing else really here for me. Cleveland's a solid defensive team too. Maybe a little bit less so with Noah Okoro, but that's neither here nor there. By the way, drink for anybody that was waiting for me to say that, because apparently that's one of my go-tos.
Isaac Okoro?
No, neither here nor there.
Oh. I was like, do you really talk about Isaac Okoro's individual defense that often?
No, I don't think that I do. Isaac Okoro out, Kevin Love out for Cleveland. On the Cleveland side, a little bit more ownership to go around here. Evan Mobley at 22% on FanDuel, 6,600. I completely agree with that. We're seeing Garland and Jared Allen and Markkanen and Colin Sexton all getting a little bit of love, somewhere in that 10% range. I think all of these guys look slightly better than average. Nobody really is clearing the mark for me. I don't see anybody that I want to really focus on, but I like this entire starting five, or, the guys that get the big minutes, because they're cutting their rotation. They played 8 guys the last time out. If everybody's going to get 30 plus in that starting lineup, they're viable.
Yeah, this is a team where I don't necessarily think there's one player that stands out as a phenomenal play, but I expect it to be a team where in most of my lineups, I have somebody from Cleveland, because they've really been running 8-man rotations consistently. It's gotten kind of muddied because in games where there's a blowout, obviously they add guys to the second half rotation, but they've pretty consistently been running 8-man rotations. They kept doing that even with Love out. They kind of, just replaced Love with Dean Wade. So you're getting huge minutes from these guys. Evan Mobley played 40 minutes against Charlotte. You got 35 minutes from all of Markkanen, Allen, Garland, and Sexton. Rubio played 25 minutes. He's played well this year off the bench too. So I think there's really 6 guys that you can just sort of rotate through in your lineups. If I have to narrow it down, I think Sexton at 6,300 and Garland at 6,400 are probably the easiest to get to. 5,400 for Markkanen is not a bad price either. But yeah, this is a really favorable rotation for DFS.
When I saw Mobley's minutes, I immediately was like, oh, this game must have went to overtime. And then I looked it up and I was just like, no, it didn't. No one, I just assumed, oh, that's why we got this big concentration of minutes. Everybody played an extra 5. And then I looked at it, I was like, nope, they're just jamming these dudes in for everything that they can. I ran a crunch. I am getting to Mobley on FanDuel. No surprises there.
Yeah. One slight thing to point out, and I don't intend for this to be taken as a huge negative, but Jared Allen's rebounding numbers are down a bit this year. That can be attributed to playing alongside Mobley and Markkanen. So that's something where even last game, he had a monster game, but a lot of that was he just scored at a ridiculous clip. I don't know if he ended up setting a career high in points, but I know he was flirting with it. So that is worth noting. I think that he's not rebounding at the same rate, but still plenty of upside for him at 6,400.
Yeah,
and he had 16 rebounds in that game too. So I mean, it was an all around phenomenal game. That upside is still clearly there, but I do think that on average, Markkanen and Mobley are taking rebounds away from him.
Yeah. Allen, 1.05 fantasy points per minute so far this season on FanDuel. No problem getting to as much Allen as like it seems reasonable. I have a lot actually at 12% on FanDuel right now. The fact that he has the power forward eligibility as well, really helpful. Same for Mobley. They got power forward center. That's huge. On DraftKings, where Allen is just center eligible, he fits into a slot of like 15 other dudes that have the exact same sort of ceiling as him in that price range. The Rashawn Holmeses of the world. Steven Adams is cheaper, but like those kind of guys just exist as center only mid tiers.
Yeah, there's always massive opportunity cost for guys that are only center eligible.
Yeah. Anything else here for Cleveland or Portland?
Nope.
The New York Knicks, 1 point underdogs in Indiana, 219.5 total. Jeremy Lamb out for the Pacers. Nerlens Noel and Taj Gibson both questionable for the Knicks. Whichever one actually plays is probably going to be the backup center. I assume the other guy just doesn't play then. Not really all that interesting of news unless both guys happen to be out. And then Malcolm Brogdon, questionable here, has missed the last 3 for Indiana. I'm assuming he plays today based on some of the stuff that I read earlier. We won't know that until lock. On the Knicks side, highest owned guy in the game, 9.9% on Julius Randle. And that's about all I see.
Yeah, not a whole lot standing out here. 9,400 for Randle looks fine, but it's an 11-game slate. There's going to be a lot of guys that you can pay up for. And that's not typically a price range where outside of, some circumstances like Giannis, but typically you're not, or I'm not at least, taking some like huge stand on one of the expensive guys over a lot of the others. It's more so trying to spread out my exposure to them. I'm more likely to take a stand on value plays or mid-range guys that I think are really, really underpriced. And there's not a lot around them that offers the same ceiling. That's not the case when you talk about paying up, but I think that, 9,400 for Randle is a pretty good price tag. He's playing 36 minutes or so. He's still producing at a high rate. Indiana has struggled defensively this year. So Julius Randle looks, pretty good. 5,900 for Kemba is, I think, reasonable as well. Got 28 minutes last game. He has been playing a bit better than he was at the beginning of the year. But overall, this is just kind of another team where I'll get to some Randle, I'll get to some Walker. You can even play some Derrick Rose at 4,400. Obviously not in the same lineups as Kemba, but you and I have talked about it before. I think Kemba is making it clear that he is the point guard on this team. More often than not, he's going to be in the closing lineup. But there's still going to be games where Derrick Rose plays well off the bench or Kemba plays poorly or whatever, and Rose picks up an extra 4 minutes because he closes the game. Now that his price tag's down to 4,400, that makes him a pretty appealing, like not a guy that you want in like a high percentage of your lineups, but he's a very high ceiling $4,400 player if you happen to get him on the day that he plays 25 or 26 minutes.
And that's coming at some point in time. He's going to cook for his first half rotation. He's going to start to cook again in the beginning of his second rotation in the second half. And he's just going to stay out there. Like it's just going to be how it is. It's not going to be shocking or surprising. We know it's coming.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to like the Tyus Jones conversation from yesterday, not to compare Rose's situation to Jones, because like Jones is never going to keep John Morant off the floor, regardless of how well he's playing. But it's just like, at 4,400, Rose isn't any sort of great play. You're not going into the slate saying, people aren't going to roster Derrick Rose and I am, and that's where the edge is or anything like that. But plays like that give you a very, very high upside in tournaments because when they do work out, they're going to work out really, really well because you're going to get an extra 5 to 6 minutes than he's being projected for. And he's a very good per minute producer.
That's the big piece. The minutes piece is probably the piece that people miss the most because from a median projection perspective, you're never looking at Derrick Rose or you're not really looking at him. For him to hit his boom score, which is, we use that on the website a lot, 5x plus 10. On DraftKings, that's 32 fantasy points. Like he can get 32 fantasy points if he's playing his 22 minutes a game. Like that can just happen in his normal rotations. He can still hit that mark. But what you're really hoping for is the day that Derrick Rose is doing that sort of same rate, but he also then plays 27 or 28 minutes. And all of a sudden his ceiling is 40 plus, and you have to have him to win in GPP.
Right.
There's not a lot of guys that are like, oh, he can get 6 to 8 additional minutes here and is underpriced. we don't get a lot of those. So I think Rose is perfect for GPPs today and moving forward, as long as the price is going to be here. Anything else for the Knicks?
Nope.
On the Pacers side, like I said, I'm assuming Brogdon is in. Highest owned player in this game is Miles Turner at 6%. That's exactly where I got him. I did not have anybody pop for Indiana as anything other than that. I basically don't have a ton of interest in going to the Pacers.
Yeah, there's not a ton that I like there. Sabonis is still expensive at 10-1. The assist numbers are down this year. We've talked about that a lot. Assuming Brogdon is back, that's certainly not going to do him any favors there. Brogdon at 8,900 is a pretty expensive price tag in a tough matchup. You also have Karis LeVert playing now, which even though he's not playing full starter minutes, he's still going to most likely impact the production of Sabonis and Brogdon when he is on the floor. 6,100 for Turner, 5,800 for Dorte. None of these really stand out to me. They become more appealing if Brogdon does sit, and TJ McConnell at 5,100 would obviously become a better option. But assuming Brogdon's in, I don't really see much of anything on Indiana.
No, yeah, we're on the same page. I mean, it's rarely a good game in general. I have the Knicks as the 28th fastest team in the league. That's not ideal. Indiana is one of the faster teams, so it's a big time pace down spot for the Pacers. Knicks defense is good too, so I just don't see myself getting to a lot of the Pacers. Anything else in this one?
Nope.
Schedule, guys, for the rest of the day. NFL strategy show comes up immediately after this one. Ownership edition. They'll be taking a look at the ownership for week 9 in the NFL. Jock Market NBA show coming up at 1. NHL strategy show at 2. I don't know if Jake's on it, but you should stop by and congratulate him on last night's performance. 4 p.m., the No House Advantage NFL show. And then at 4:45, Adam will be back for the deeper dive, breaking down all 11 games again. Live before lock for the NBA at 6 p.m. and PGA live before lock at 8 p.m. Free content if you're looking for it. NBA ownership rankings, PGA rankings, and NHL rankings. A lot of free stuff. You can find those links from Nightbot or just go directly to awesemo.com. Alrighty. Boston Celtics, biggest favorites on the slate, 7-point favorites in Orlando, 216 total. Everybody's here for Boston. I don't know if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to start passing based on the request of Marcus Smart, but we shall see. Highest owned guy in this game, 7% owned, Al Horford on DraftKings at 6,900. I'm going to continue to have at least mild interest in Robert Williams, particularly on FanDuel. Power forward center eligibility and no ownership whatsoever. Otherwise, I don't really think I get to Boston.
Yeah, the pricing looks pretty efficient. Al Horford at 6,900, not on a minutes restriction, played 33 minutes last game. So that was one of those where we'd seen him playing 30 minutes. And then the Celtics said that he wasn't on a minutes restriction. Didn't really know exactly what that meant, but he did get a few more minutes. So if you're going to get 33, 34 minutes from Horford, again, he's playing really well. He's producing at a high level. This is a good matchup against Orlando. So I don't mind getting there in tournaments. I don't mind getting some Robert Williams, like you said. But, when you look at Tatum, you look at Brown, they have very, very high ceilings, but they're also really expensive. So it's tough to prioritize them. You did get Schroeder playing 21 minutes. So that kind of answered the question that we were talking about, like what does his rotation look like when everyone is healthy? I think that there's times he picks up 4 to 5 more minutes and, happens to close the game, but it's pretty tough to get to him after seeing, 21 minutes last time.
Robert Williams is really breaking me right now. Not as much as whatever's happening to you is breaking you, but I assume, I saw it switch on the screen in YouTube just as you were starting to die. I think Jordan really realized, I got to get Adam off of there. Not looking
Best
good for him
in the industry.
He really is. He really is. Ever since that I retired from producing, it's been a crown that was up for whoever wanted it. I don't know. Robert Williams is breaking me on FanDuel at 6,400 or 5,900 on DraftKings. I don't know what to do with him anymore. I don't know how low I need to project him because when push comes to shove, he's still a 1 fantasy point per minute guy in this season. Do I think that that's just his new standard? That seems like a gigantic drop, even though Horford is there. So, maybe something in the 1.05 to 1.1 range works. there are going to be times where he's going to have like 8 stocks and just absolutely blow this up. So to me, he's the most interesting guy just because he's not pulling any ownership. And I think the price is fine. Be prepared for like
for
real
worth,
bust
4
type
games
games.
with Horford, 0.79 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah, that is just insane. Like so much of that has to be, I would imagine, like he just hasn't had blocks and steals in some of those games. That's just missing like a chunk of his type of plays.
He's averaging 2 blocks per game in those games.
So
and 0.8 steals
per game. That's the way that you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Something I got to dig into, potentially bringing him down further. I just have a hard time believing that he's anything less than a fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he's also having his minutes staggered with Horford. So it's not like he's playing every minute alongside him. But
yeah,
I mean, Horford is definitely cutting into that production. It doesn't change what you're saying. There's still a very high ceiling for Williams just based on the type of player he is. There's going to be some games where even though on average Horford is taking rebounds and everything, there's going to be some games where Williams just happens to get more rebounds and, throws up 5 blocks and 4 steals. Like the ceiling is still really high. But if Horford were out or this were just last year or whatever, you would be looking at Williams at this price and saying like completely broken price, highest owned guy on the slate type thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's just like put him into some lineups at low ownership and hope that you run really good.
Absolutely. On the Orlando side, only question mark we have here is Gary Harris is questionable. Orlando's rotation, pretty interesting this last time out. Brazdakis peeks his head in from time to time. He's going to be done now that Chuma Okeke is back. Gary Harris didn't play the last one. Mo Wagner only played 6 minutes. We'll see what that means. Mo Bamba, 36% owned on FanDuel. I like him. He's in my top 10. I still just feel like that's way too much Mo Bamba. Perfect example. If Mo Bamba is 36% owned and Robert Williams is not owned, I just want to have more Robert Williams than Mo Bamba in these scenarios in GPPs. They've been the same player so far this season. Mo Bamba, 1.02 fantasy points per minute for Orlando. As I mentioned before, Robert Williams, 1.02. They have the exact same performance in FanDuel so far this season. Why is one of these guys 36% owned and the other one 1? I have no idea. Same eligibilities too. So I got nothing here, but I do like Bamba. Wendell Carter Jr., the only other guy pulling any ownership. What are you doing with Orlando?
Yeah, and Bamba, I mean, even similar issues to Williams where you have Carter taking rebounds from him. Wendell Carter Jr. this year averaging 18 and a half rebound chances per game. Bamba's at 18, but Bamba's also playing 4 minutes per game more than Carter. So it gives you an idea of, what Carter is doing rebound wise. Bamba with a 15.3% rebounding percentage, Carter at 19.1% and averaging 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. So Bamba gives you a really high ceiling. You're still going to have games where he runs into more rebounds, and he is still rebounding at a pretty good clip anyway. So he looks fine, but I like Wendell Carter Jr. at 6,100, power forward and center eligibility on DraftKings. So you can roster him at power forward, which makes him more valuable. 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, typically going to play around 29, 30 minutes. So he looks pretty good there. Cole Anthony's getting expensive. He's up to 7,600, but he's also playing really, really well. He's contributing in every category. 24.5% usage rate is second highest on the team. 12.2% rebounding percentage. 25.4% assist percentage leads the team, averaging 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. Certainly not a priority or must play or anything like that at 7,600, but I assume he's going to be like 2 or 3% owned again, which he, like he was last time out. And he's just fantastic. Gives you a really, really high ceiling. He's coming off of, I think, like a 61 fantasy point game. I think before that, he had like a 56 fantasy point game. Just massive ceiling for Cole Anthony. So I don't mind that. And then I guess my obligatory Jalen Suggs mention, 32 minutes last time out. Didn't really play very well. Hasn't played great overall this year, but he's still averaging 0.83 DraftKings points per minute with a 43.7% true shooting percentage. It cannot get worse. Like it can only get better. And if you're going to play 30 to 32 minutes and average 0.83 DraftKings points per minute when you are shooting as bad as like I would, he's just playing to his floor every time out. And like, yeah, you can make the argument that his floor is actually maybe what he is, but 40, like that's an absurdly low true shooting percentage. Like it has to get better. And
I agree.
He has an 18.7% assist percentage, so he's involved there. He leads the team with a 26.4% usage rate. If he were priced for his opportunities and just continuously shooting this poorly to start out his career, I'd be a little concerned, because it's just like, okay, maybe he's not ready. Like maybe he's not that good. But he's priced for what he's been doing. He's at 5,300. That's where you price someone that is going to average 0.8 fantasy points per minute for 30 or 32 minutes.
Yeah.
And the ceiling just is a lot higher than that salary. So I still like Jalen Suggs.
Yeah. I see no, like you have to really. I'm going to keep going back to him because he's getting every opportunity possible. And I don't think he's as bad as this is showing. Didn't shoot the ball really well last year at Gonzaga, just 34% from three, but 76% from the line. He was really efficient from two, highly efficient just from the field in general, from a true shooting percentage. Like the core abilities are there. Those shots are going to just start falling at some point. Anything else for Orlando?
No, I was trying to see what he's shooting from three so far this year.
It can't be good.
23.9%.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
He has a 30.8% field goal percentage, 36.1% effective field goal percentage. Like he doesn't saying it's going to get better isn't saying that he's going to become like he's a good shooter or anything. Like, I don't think you even have to think like that deeply into it. You don't have to,
no,
you don't have to like have an actual take on where Jalen Suggs ends to be confident that he ends up better than this.
Yeah, like 50% still sucks. And that's a marked improvement of where he's at right now. And that's like, you're still saying like, oh, Jalen Suggs is having a really poor rookie year. Then it's just, oh, he can be in the NBA. Right. And that's the only difference here. So I'm with you. On to, let's hit the super chat first from James Hood. He said, who likes Tyus Jones tonight? Probably you, if I had to guess. I'd be playing him just by default. I would at least have him in one lineup just because today. To me, he's functionally unplayable on a day like today, but I'd be jamming him into at least one lineup to see if I could double it up again. Good luck tonight, James.
Imagine how much fun that would be just to come back to chat with like another 100K win with Tyus Jones and just talk shit to everybody.
It would be amazing. Chicago Bulls, 1.5 point underdogs in Philadelphia, 216 total. We know what's going on with Chicago. Nothing really to add here. We're not going to be seeing Patrick Williams for a while. Kobe White's still a little bit away. No Danny Green, no Tobias Harris, and obviously no Ben Simmons for Philly. We'll start on the Chicago side. 10% owned Lonzo Ball on FanDuel is the most owned guy here. All of the prices for Chicago are terrible on DraftKings in comparison to their prices on FanDuel. Levine, $700 more expensive. DeRozan, $300 more expensive. Lonzo Ball, $1,400 more expensive on DraftKings. Vooch, $700 more expensive on DraftKings. You can get to a little bit of these guys on Chicago, whether that's Ball or Vooch on FanDuel. Levine for 8,100 works. DeRozan for 8,200 works. I don't really see how you play these guys on DK.
Yeah, pretty tough. Vooch, 9,100, Levine, 8,800, DeRozan, 8,500. Those are pretty unappealing salaries. They're playable in tournaments just because, any one of them can go get you 55 fantasy points, but they're definitely not priorities for me. There's a lot of players that are going to look better. So, not unplayable, but definitely not priorities here. More so, they're the guy where, you have a lineup that's pretty chalky and you say, okay, I need somebody with a high ceiling and no ownership. Let me throw in Levine. Let me throw in DeRozan. They're playable in that sense, but they're not guys that you're looking at saying like, I really want to get more DeRozan or more Levine tonight.
GPP ceiling pivots is the best you could really hope for here. I don't have anything else to add for Chicago. They're like, to me, they're that bad on DK. 9% total ownership to the Bulls on DraftKings. That's not even good if it's just one guy. Like, there's nothing here. Now we got to do it. So the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid, these ownership projections, this should be 100 points higher. Joel Embiid is 9,700 on FanDuel, 10,300 on DraftKings. I know you know the answer to this, and I know you're going to talk about it. Tell the people what Joel Embiid does when Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons aren't on the floor.
Scores a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah, I believe the usage rate is like 46% since last year.
Yeah, it's something just insane. Yeah, I'm pulling it up now, but ridiculous usage rate. He produces at a really, really high level. Without Harris and without Simmons, he has played, and this is something we had talked about before, where I was kind of disappointed that they weren't staggering their minutes when Harris was in, because you would get just ridiculous Joel Embiid. 178 minutes since the start of last season without Harris or Simmons on the floor. Embiid has a 46.2% usage percentage, a 24.5% rebounding percentage, a 32.5% assist percentage, and has averaged 2.06 DraftKings points per minute.
Yeah. So I didn't give him those rates. I took a sizable bite out of all of it. Still gets him to 1.63 fantasy points per minute in this spot. If he's 16% owned on FanDuel, as we currently show, he'll be one of my most exposed players. If he's 7% on DraftKings, he'd be one of my most over the field plays that I could get to. I don't see a way that you can get away from Joel Embiid for this game. Like, all signs point to him just nuking the spot. And Vooch is not, like, if you want to play defensive matchup games, Chicago doesn't exactly have the tools to stop him.
Yeah, there's the only like argument against Embiid is that he's a center, and
yeah,
you see this with Jokic, where Jokic is like, the best pay up option on a lot of slates, but there's almost always going to be mid-range, 7K guys at center that go for 50 points and make the pay up center kind of irrelevant unless you have both of them on DraftKings, or unless, the pay up guy goes for 75. So that's the only kind of case to be made against him, is if Embiid were to get 60, there's a pretty good chance it's actually not that useful at his position. But other than that, I mean, fantastic spot for Embiid.
Yeah, one of the best plays of the day, as far as I'm concerned, just because of what we've seen him do previously. We need to talk about the ownership here, though. Furkan Korkmaz is around 25% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. George Niang is 15 to 20% owned across FanDuel and DraftKings. Korkmaz, 4,200 and 4,300 FanDuel DK. Niang, 3,700 and 3,800. I'm a little bit more interested in Niang than Korkmaz. I don't totally know who's going to get all of these minutes moving forward. I don't love the ownership for either guy right now. I think there's enough value elsewhere that you don't have to go crazy just cornering the market on Philly, because it could just as easily be Shake Milton pulling a couple extra minutes, Korkmaz not getting them, Thibault pulling a couple extra minutes, George Niang not getting them. There's a bit too much ambiguity for what this rotation could look like, that I don't necessarily think Chalk Korkmaz and Chalk Niang are the best things in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're fine. Like, they're still cheap. There's going to be minutes there. I think it's going to depend on, who's playing well. Last game, he got 24.8 minutes from Korkmaz, but he didn't close that game. Niang did. I think that, there's times where Korkmaz closes instead of Niang.
Did you watch that game by any chance?
No.
So I was watching that game. Niang hit a couple threes in his like late rotation in the second half. And once he got cooking there, his drive game started coming into play. So he was picking up like foul after foul after foul at the rim. There was no situation where they were taking Niang out because he was just hot. I want to say that he had like 21 or 23 points, like for real. If that's going in the normal way and Philly's just like up some points, Niang's going to become Thibault for defensive reasons.
Yeah, well, Thibault was in anyway, but Thibault closed over Korkmaz.
Right.
Yeah, like Thibault and Niang both played the final like quarter and a half without coming off the floor. Yeah. But that took minutes away from Korkmaz. The point here is that there's going to be some games where Niang plays a bunch of minutes. There's going to be some games where Korkmaz plays a bunch of minutes. There's going to be some games where they both disappoint and, Shake Milton plays more. He only played, I think, 20 minutes last game. Yeah. So I think that they are good values, but I'm with you where they're not the type of value where I necessarily want to just like go crazy and play a bunch more than the field. I do think $3,900 Shake Milton at 4.7% ownership is pretty appealing. Yeah. It's just the situation where you have to understand the volatility in this rotation. Like, he was 30% owned the other day and he really disappointed. But the reason he was 30% owned was people recognized that there were a lot of minutes available and that he could, potentially play mid-20s. Didn't happen, but that doesn't mean that you just like say, oh, in that game he played 20 minutes. That means he's definitely playing 20 minutes today. The path to minutes is still there. And so if everyone's going to back away from that, I I like getting there, and he is a good fantasy producer when he's on the floor. So, given these ownerships, like I think Korkmaz is fine. I think Niang's fine. I'm not saying not to play them, but getting a 4-1 or 5-1 ownership discount on Shake Milton, I like going there.
Yeah, we're on the same page for this one. Absolutely. And the most important piece of all of this will be whatever the Phillies starting lineup is. Like if Korkmaz starts again, you're much more comfortable with his minutes. He's much more likely to play those big minutes. The ownership looks a lot more reasonable. Same situation for Niang. Like if George Niang happens to start today, his outlook is significantly different than if we have to hope that George Niang plays normal backup rotations and then closes. So you got to pay very close attention to the starting lineup when that information comes out. So make sure you're watching live before lock.
Somebody in Jason Gunn in chat said everything will be different with Embiid playing. Like Embiid obviously is going to get a ton of usage, even more than Drummond did. But from a rotation standpoint, nothing changes. Drummond played like 33.5 minutes that game. He closed. You just replace that with Embiid when you're talking about the Korkmaz, Curry, Milton rotations. So no, it doesn't really change.
No, not at all. I mean, we're not going to see George Niang play as the small ball 5 in this spot, I would imagine. But that's really the only change.
Right.
Like they've got 48 minutes of centers now instead of not having that.
Right. Yeah. Because Reed only played 9 minutes last game.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like
you mean shooting guard Paul Reed?
Yeah. Shooting guard Paul Reed.
Yeah, still shooting guard on FanDuel, by the way. Paul Reed.
Is Banton still a power forward?
I don't know. Yep.
But yeah, so like to his point, Embiid being out there does curb the expected production a little bit, but it's not like Drummond's a low usage guy anyway. Yeah. But from like a minutes standpoint, it shouldn't change too much because Drummond, played Embiid's minutes essentially.
I'll let you know this right now. I don't even have him as like a crazy good value player or anything. I'm not playing tonight's slate. I talked about it on the process show and in the contenders. I'm going to be wife and I are going out to dinner tonight. I'm just going to be not playing this slate. How much do you want to bet that Tyrese Maxey goes for 40 or more?
Just points? Knowing that you're not playing makes me really want to play Tyrese Maxey.
I know. I see it coming and it's going to infuriate me. The only good thing here is that my dinner starts, I believe at 6, maybe it's 6:30. It's got a wine pairing as well. If I open up my phone at like 8:30 and Tyrese Maxey had 20 real points in the first half, I'm gonna knock back a couple extra wines.
just get the divorce papers drawn up, bring them with you. Open the app and then see Maxey just smashing and just hand them to her and walk away.
I don't know that I need to stick around for the moolah, man. If I'm not going to win with Tyrese Maxey, I need to stay. I need reverse divorce papers. Alrighty. Toronto Raptors at the Washington Wizards. Raptors are 3.5-point dogs in Washington, 218.5 total. For this one, no Scotty Barnes. For Toronto, no Davis Bertans. For Washington, on the Toronto side, a lot of ownership, and I agree with it. Fred VanVleet, 15 to 25% owned, depending on the site. Looks great on FanDuel. OG Anunoby, 17% owned on DraftKings at 7,700, 33% owned on FanDuel. Gary Trent is 25% owned. Svi Mikhailiuk on DK, one of the better value plays you're going to find. 35% owned at 3,700, shooting guard, small forward eligibility. Kem Birch been playing a couple extra minutes. I think that's viable. Chris Boucher playing a little bit less minutes. I'm sure people will still roster him. Got to go to a lot of Toronto here.
Yeah, I don't really see any way around it. Mikhailiuk started last game. I think, actually, I know I had predicted that on the morning show, so I'll take credit for that. But he played a lot of minutes, too. I thought that even if he started, there was a decent chance he played like mid-20s in minutes. He played like 34 minutes in that game. 35.
Yeah.
So at 3,700, he looks like a good value there, assuming he starts again. But it's still just Nick Nurse being Nick Nurse. He's playing these guys absurd minutes, 36 plus minutes to all of the starters. Trent played 42. He's 5,100. It doesn't feel great rostering him, but 5,100 for a guy that's likely to play 38 minutes or something tonight. Looks pretty good. Anunoby played 41 minutes. VanVleet played 37. There's potentially more rebounding opportunities for Anunoby with Barnes out. There's potentially more assist opportunities for Van Vliet with Barnes out and more usage. This whole team looks good. The center position, I'll be interested to see what the starting lineup is. Kem Birch started the second half in place of Achua. Achua was having a bad game. For now, until we get a lineup, I'm assuming that Achua goes back to being the starter. And it actually makes it kind of an interesting tournament spot because we've seen Achua playing 28 to 30 minutes typically this year. He had a bad game. He got replaced in the rotation by Birch, who ended up playing 31 minutes. If he starts again, there's no reason to think that Nick Nurse is going in saying, oh, well, I'm going to start Achua, but then I'm going to replace him with Kem Birch. Like you should just assume that the last game was kind of a one-off and that Achua is going to play 28 to 30 minutes at 4,400. If he doesn't start, then obviously don't do that. And you can look to Birch at 4K. But I think that Achua is pretty interesting at that price in tournaments, given that people are probably going to shy away because of his last game.
Absolutely. All right. For your Wizards, like I said, no Davis Bertans here. No ownership here either. Montrezl Harrell, 6,600 on DraftKings, just center eligible. Stop me if you've heard this before, but there's a lot of centers in that range. If Harrell's pulling some ownership, he's not one of the guys that I'm trying to get to. No one else is owned here. So I've got a little bit of interest in GPPs and Kyle Kuzma or Spencer Dinwiddie or even Bradley Beal to a lesser degree, but there's not a lot here for the Wizards.
Yeah, and one word of caution with Harrell as well. He played 33 and a half minutes last game, even though Daniel Gafford was back. Gafford was in massive foul trouble in that game. Picked up one foul in the first quarter, picked up his second and third in his 2-minute stint to open the second. So then Harrell came back in earlier than he would have. Gafford picked up his fourth foul 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the third. So Harrell subbed in earlier than he would have. I think that he's still probably going to be the guy that plays the bulk of the center minutes. Like he on average is going to play more minutes than Gafford, but I think it's a lot more likely you're getting 28 to 30 minutes going to Harrell than that you're getting these. Like it wasn't intended for him to play 34 minutes even with Gafford back. So the elevated price tag is enough to deter me from going there. He's priced for Gafford to be out mostly. There's not a whole lot that I see on Washington. Beal is fine in the same sense that like Damian Lillard is fine. He's going to have, a handful of 50-point actual games this year. If you happen to have him in your lineup the night he does it, then that's great. The ceiling is certainly there, but I'm not looking at $9,600 Bradley Beal and thinking I'm really building around him. Dinwiddie, 28.7 minutes last game. Just I can't get to him at 7,200 until I see him actually playing more than 30 minutes.
All right. Anything else, Toronto or Washington?
Nope. Lots of Toronto, not much Washington.
All righty. Now we got to talk a little bit about the sponsor of this bad boy. That is PrizePicks. They have daily prop-based contests, and you can use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up to get a 100% first match deposit bonus of up to $100. If you put in 100, they will match with 100. You don't have to worry about sharks or optimizers or mass entries. You can pick 5 props that can net you up to 10x your entry fee. You can use your knowledge of multiple sports, build a cross-sport entry, download the app in the App Store, Google Play, or just play on prizepicks.com. We have free player prop tools on the website to help you make the best selections possible. I'm going to hit Adam with 2 separate props for today from PrizePicks. Are you ready, Adam?
Yeah.
Bradley Beal, over under 26.5 real points. By the way, that's real points. No other scoring system is necessary.
Over.
Of course, you would pick over on Bradley Beal. Why would I even ask you that? Of course, I could have said 44. You'd have been like, over. I have Bradley Beal at 26.5 on the dot. That one is a straight up push to me. This next one, I'm very interested in your thoughts. OG Anunoby, over under 18.5 real points.
Oh, I forgot we were doing this. I was answering chat. Somebody won 1250 last night with Utah, so I was going to congratulate them.
Nice.
How many real points for OG?
18.5.
I'll take the over.
Okay. I got him at 19.2, so I will also take the over. There's 2 freebies for you for PrizePicks. Make sure you're checking out the rest of the stuff that we have on the website that will help you make your picks. Thanks, PrizePicks. And thanks for sponsoring the Contenders videos and the Process Show. I'm team PrizePicks right now. On to Atlanta at Brooklyn. Hawks are 5-point dogs, 218.5 total. No Nick Claxton for Brooklyn. Going to be out for about a week or two. Questionable tag on John Collins for Atlanta, which has some pretty big trickle-down effects for the, 600 other wings that they have. For Atlanta, Bogdan Bogdanovic, 13% owned on FanDuel. Clint Capella, 13% owned on FanDuel, where he's just 6,400. Nobody north of 8% on DK. I don't have a lot here for Atlanta that I'm excited to get to. If Collins is out, it's going to make DeAndre Hunter look a lot better. Cam Reddish look potentially better. Danilo Gallinari potentially look a little bit better. But otherwise, I don't think Collins being out affects Capella all that much. Maybe a slight increase to a rebounding rate, but nothing too wild there. I don't know if the minutes are going to change. What do you see for Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, if Collins is out, I think it makes Gallinari look better. He's only 3,500. I think it opens the door for Reddish and or Hunter to play more minutes. They're both cheap too. So, and there's more usage. You get more usage potentially for like Bogdanovic in the starting lineup. So,
yeah,
I think that if Collins is out, it really opens up a lot, particularly in terms of the relatively inexpensive wings. But I don't think it really impacts the main pieces too much. Like Trae Young's usage is already there. Capella's never going to be, like a really high usage guy. But if he's in, I think 7K for Collins is okay. He is getting expensive pretty quickly. He played about 31 minutes last game. One thing that looked really good last game was Capella played 33 minutes. We had seen, I think in the game before that, I'm pulling it up now because I'm going from memory, but he either played more minutes than usual or he was on pace to. So he played against Philadelphia. It was a blowout loss. He played 28 minutes 2 games ago, but he left with 5 minutes and 13 seconds to go in the blowout. So they were going to play him, 33 minutes. Then he did play 33 minutes against Washington. I think that's really important to note because we had seen so far this year, Capella kind of just capped at 27, 28 minutes. If they're going to start running him out there for 33 minutes, 7,100 starts to look like a pretty good price tag for someone that produces at the rate that Capella does.
6,400 on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, really good price.
Yeah. Anything else here for Atlanta?
Nope. I mean, Trae Young probably has a massive game because I played a lot of him last time out and he killed me. But he's in that like Lillard and Beal category where I want some Trae Young at 9,500, but he's not. I don't think I have like 30% today like I did last time.
Also, 8,700 for Trae Young on FanDuel. Another just price tag where a point guard is priced in the 8s for reasons that I don't totally understand. Brooklyn. This one's really easy. There's basically 2 guys that you could roster, maybe 2.5, depending on how you feel about Joe Harris, but he's been a 0.57 fantasy point per minute guy as of late, so maybe not Joe Harris. James Harden, 9,900 on FanDuel, 10-2 on DK. Durant, 10-8 across both. I think I slightly prefer James Harden, but I don't see either one of these guys as guys that I just get a ton of. There's just too much like high-end value today for me to want to get to sort of like properly set up Harden and Durant.
Yeah, I agree with that. Harden's production's been down a bit this year. I think that he does get better going forward. He kind of figures out how to play basketball again, but 10-2 is a pretty healthy price tag. I just think it's kind of where it should be. Same can be said for Durant at 10-8. So if you get to some, that's fine. It's James Harden and Kevin Durant. It's not like you're making a bad play or anything, but it's going to be difficult for me to get a lot of them.
Yeah, they're always in play, but I like Luka more than both of those guys today by a lot. We've got Curry. We've got the price down guys like Embiid. Trae Young at 8,700. I mean, it's got comparable ceilings to some of these guys. Jokic is on this slate. Towns is on this slate. We're pretty loaded, so it's tough to prioritize Harden and Durant. Can you roster anybody else from Brooklyn?
I don't really see much. Bruce Brown now is up to 4,700. He was a good value play when he was sitting at 3,800. It starts to get difficult to get there when he's playing a lot of his minutes alongside Harden and Durant. Makes him like a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. Aldridge taking up a center spot at 5K is not really something I want to deal with. 4,600 for Joe Harris would be the next guy I get to, I guess. But even that is just you're kind of just using him as like a last piece in and hoping he starts drilling threes.
All righty. Denver at Memphis. Nuggets are 1-point dogs in Memphis, 212.5 total. And everybody that could be playing in this one is playing. Dylan Brooks is still a couple games away. Michael Porter Jr., double digits in ownership, 14% on FanDuel, 11 on DraftKings. I do think he's the best option relative to salary here. I don't have a ton that I like just in general, Jokic 11-2 on FanDuel, 11-4 on DK. I like him, but that is a big time price today.
Yeah, that's really expensive, especially when you can pay up for Embiid for $1,000 less playing without Harris. So I'm never gonna tell anyone not to roster Jokic, especially when he's 6% owned. He's fantastic. He's been great this year. His rates go up without Jamal Murray, and he's taking advantage of that. He's about a 1.8 DraftKings point per minute guy. So I think that I think that it's likely he produces at a similar rate to Embiid, if not a little bit better, and he plays more minutes by 2 or 3 minutes. But that salary also is it's about $1,000 more. So really, it comes down to I would love to get to Jokic in tournaments, but I don't want to give up a lot to do so. Like, I think he's a very, very good tournament option, but it really depends what the rest of your lineup looks like around him. I don't want to go from Embiid to Jokic and then the piece that I give up go from like a high upside player to somebody that just like has no ceiling. That's not worth it to me. If I end up being if there ends up being enough value that I can make the same sort of play with that second piece and then get from Embiid to Jokic at lower ownership, or just get to Jokic in general, then I like it, because he is one of the best fantasy point per minute guys, but he's also really expensive.
Tony, we got to not be watching game tape to try to figure out what's wrong with Joel Embiid. 1.42 FanDuel points per minute so far this season for Embiid. Is that slightly lower than it's been before? Yeah, but I'm not trying to crack the code on Joel Embiid right now.
Yeah. I'm not worried about Embiid. And also, people keep saying Birch is the center. Yeah, he's going to play more minutes than Achua sometimes, and sometimes he's not.
Yeah. On the Memphis side, highest owned player in this game is 12% owned Steven Adams, who is 4,500 today. Everybody else is 9% owned Bane, 9% owned Jaren Jackson, 9% owned Kyle Anderson. You cannot play Memphis on FanDuel today. These guys are significantly more expensive on FanDuel than they are on DK, unless you want to play Tyus Jones and print all the money. On DraftKings, though, we do have some things that we can look at here. What stands out most to you for Memphis? I just find them to be a really weird team, and I honestly have no idea how many minutes Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to play in a given day.
So the price on Steven Adams at 4,500 looks very good to me. He's likely to play 30-plus minutes. I would think that Memphis would like him to pretty much match Jokic minutes, or at least come close. Played 30.8 in this matchup last time out. Jokic played 33. Adams has been pretty productive this season, and at 4,500, you would expect him to do well there. 1.06 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. So I think he looks like a good value. Of course, there's the opportunity cost piece at center. Jackson, I think, is still underpriced at 5,500. He's been pretty disappointing this year, and at 6,500, I kept thinking that it was weird how much people were playing him. But at 5,500, assuming he's going to play around 30 minutes, I think that he's still a good play, even though he has struggled. Dealt with some foul issues last game, picked up 2 in the first half, picked up his 3rd and 4th in his first 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the second half, picked up his 5th 15 seconds into his fourth quarter rotation, and then just never came back into the game. So I'm not reading into his rotation last game, other than the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. fouls a lot. That's something that we know. But barring foul trouble, I expect him to continue playing around 30 minutes. 5,500 just looks like a good price tag for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got him in for 28 minutes right now. Dude just has a lot of trouble staying on the floor. Don't know where we end up with him. I don't know.
When you said you can't play Memphis on FanDuel, I just assumed that they were so incompetent they just didn't put them on the slate.
They'd be better off. I mean, everybody's Melton, $400 more expensive. Bane, $400 more expensive. Jackson, $800. Adams, $1,400. Kyle Anderson, $900. Ja, $200. The whole team is just way more expensive on FanDuel. All right, let's go to Clippers and Minnesota Timberwolves. Now is when we're going to start talking about some of the most interesting things that are happening today. For the Clippers, no Marcus Morris, no Serge Ibaka. We know that. For Minnesota, D'Angelo Russell out, injured his ankle in the last one. Patrick Beverley is questionable. We will start on the Clippers side. Nick Batum is about 20% owned across both sites, 4,600 and 4,300, FanDuel and DK respectively. Reggie Jackson is 13% owned on FanDuel at 5,700. He has been real bad so far this season. Isaiah Hartenstein at the flat 3K, 12% owned, potential value option. Where do you want to go for options from the Clippers? I'm not entirely sure Paul George is one of those guys I want to get a lot of.
I think there's just a ton of guys that you can go to here.
Yeah.
George at the top still looks good. He's expensive, so that's the issue. He's $500 less than Jokic, but 10-9 is a hell of a price tag to pay. It's a good spot for him. He's played really, really well, but more of just a pay up to be contrarian option. But Reggie Jackson at 6,200, he's playing huge minutes. Actually, I believe leads the team in minutes per game this year. I'm double checking that, but I know he did going into last game, and then he played 39 minutes again. So he's been bad, but a lot of it's just been poor shooting as well. Not that he's the best shooter in the world, but he's shooting worse than you would expect him to. So I still think he's playable just based on how many minutes he's playing. You have a very cheap price tag on Zubats, who only played about 12 minutes last game. I have no confidence in his playing time, but 4,200 still gives you upside. And then behind him, you have Hartenstein at 3K, like you said, also, a path to 18, 20 minutes, which would look pretty good. So in tournaments, they're fine. Batum at 4,300, playing a lot of minutes with Morris out. He played 32 minutes last game. I expect that to be around where, he averages for as long as Marcus Morris is out. You're getting 26 to 27 minutes from Eric Bledsoe, who's 4,400. There's just a lot of cheap pieces here in a pretty good spot that I like getting to.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add there. There's a lot of options and a lot of guys priced basically the exact same. Makes it tricky. This is where we need to talk, though. The Minnesota Timberwolves. We've got Karl Anthony Towns, about 16% owned across both sites. Feels a little high, just given what's out there, but no problems with it. Towns has been great so far this year. Anthony Edwards, 21% owned on FanDuel, 11 on DraftKings. I like him, maybe not that much. Malik Beasley, however, 4,500 on FanDuel, 4,100 on DraftKings. I assume is going to be playing 30 minutes, potentially more. Played 32.5 this last time out. We've got Jordan McLaughlin, flat 3K on DK. My assumption is he is going to be the starting point guard today. We don't know based on Beverly. It could be Beverly, who would also look pretty interesting. 4,800 on FanDuel, not interesting. 3,700 on DraftKings, a little bit more so. Jared Vanderbilt's pulling ownership on DK. There is a lot going on in Minnesota. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, Beasley at 4,100. He's been bad this year, but with Russell out, there is more usage to go around. The minutes should increase. There's just not a whole lot of downside at that price tag, and there's a very high ceiling. 0.79 DraftKings points per minute so far this year with a 46.6% true shooting percentage. I think that there's just a lot more upside than downside at that price for Beasley with Russell out. However, if Beverly is out and you're getting McLaughlin starting, then he's going to look good at the flat minimum. I think if you were to get Beverly starting, he would be reasonable as well. Obviously, they both become riskier if Beverly is in, but they're still solid value options if they're going to play, like 22 to 24 minutes apiece. Towns is always great, and you get probably a little bit more usage for him and for Edwards without Russell out there. So they both look pretty good in tournaments, even though they are relatively expensive. So I think, the value pieces are where I would get to the most, but Vanderbilt in there as well. But I also think that, paying up for Towns and Edwards in some tournament lineups makes sense.
Would you say Beasley's the best play on DraftKings today relative to salary?
That's tough. There's a lot of good ones. He's one of them.
Shooting guard and small forward, 4,100. I don't know how that. I don't see a lot of scenarios where that play can hurt you,
right?
Unless Beasley gets locked up again in the middle of the game.
You didn't play Cade Cunningham last night, so
yeah. Even still, you got the opportunity at least.
Right, yeah, but he still actively hurt you at 3,600 in 29 minutes. He still can, but the downside is minimal to Beasley and the upside is massive.
Yeah, I think he might be the best guy that you can get to today, just given the position, the fact that he did play 32 minutes this last time out, 27 the game before that, so it is creeping up. No Russell makes it seem like he's going to just step into that. Obviously, if Beverly is out, I don't think it's even up for debate. Even if Beverly's in, though, I still think Beasley plays 30 minutes. Anything else here?
No, just play a lot of Minnesota and honestly a good amount of Clippers too.
All righty, guys, 617 viewers, just 136 likes. I've been a little lax on my asking in the show because I'm so worried about making sure we finish the show by 10 o'clock. So hit that thumbs up if you haven't done it already. I see no reason we can't run that number north of 200 given the amount of people that are in here. And if you're interested in signing up at Awesemo, you're in luck. Use the promo code NBA Strategy Show. That is one gigantic word. You can get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. That covers everything. Just because it's NBA in the title doesn't mean it's just NBA. It covers all of our projections for every sport, ownership, premium slack, lineup builder, and more. That is the promo code. You can see it on the screen. It's 25% off for your first week. Or if you're only interested in playing NBA DFS, sign up for our Awesemo Plus NBA Weekly Package, $16.95, or our NBA Weekly Express Package, $4.95. Gives you access to all of our NBA Showdown and single game contests as well. All right, let's close it out. 3 more games to go. Dallas at San Antonio. Mavs 1-point favorites in San Antonio. Interesting line there. For Dallas, no Maxi Kleber. We're waiting on news on Kristaps Porzingis and Trey Burke. I am assuming Kristaps Porzingis plays. As for Trey Burke, all he has to do is just show up to take his COVID test, which he has now not done twice. Can't figure out if that's going to continue. Doug McDermott, also questionable for San Antonio. Looks like he can be back. I like Luka a lot. 10-3 on FanDuel, 10-7 on DraftKings. I think with all the savings that's out there, paying up for him in this spot seems pretty easy. I don't really have any other interest in Dallas.
Yeah, Luka looks good. And for the millionth time, Porzingis doesn't change how I feel about him. If anything, he produces at a higher rate when Porzingis plays. So either way, I think Luka looks good. That's about sums it up, I think. Like if Porzingis is out, $5,100 Brunson looks good. $3,800 Powell looks good. But assuming Porzingis plays, I don't really have much outside of Luka.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have anything to add there. We're just on the same sort of wavelength. San Antonio, on the other hand. Derek White, 21% owned on FanDuel at 6,100. I pretty much agree with that. He's 11% owned on DraftKings. Still, to me, the guy that I would want to get to most from anyone in San Antonio. And then that's probably it.
Yeah, I mean, DeJounte Murray's priced up to where really he probably should be, but it makes him really risky. It kind of just puts him in that same category where there's a lot of guards in that price range that are really good. Murray's certainly one of them, but it's hard to single out any one of Lillard or Young or Murray or any of these guys. So, he's fine, but I doubt I have a lot just because of all of the other options in that price range. $7K for Pirtle seems reasonable. $6,300 for White looks okay. Keldon Johnson at $5,300 is fine, but there's not really much that stands out here to me.
Yeah, not that kind of game. I don't have anything else.
The opposite of the Clippers and Timberwolves game.
Yeah, we'll have some things to talk about here, that's for sure. The Charlotte Hornets in Golden State. Hornets are 6-point dogs, 225 total, and both teams have everybody available that they normally would. For Charlotte, the biggest and most interesting piece that I think you can get to today would be $5,500 Terry Rozier on FanDuel. He's projected for 25% ownership. I honestly think that's totally warranted, and I will happily have more if that happens. He just shouldn't be 5,500 given his role for this team. And then that's probably it for Charlotte. I think these guys are either priced appropriately or overpriced across the board.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's still guys that you can look at in tournaments just because of the production they give you and their ceilings. I agree with you that Rozier at 5,500 is mispriced. He's 6,800 on DraftKings, so not nearly as appealing. LaMelo at 8,600, still very capable of going for 55, 60 DraftKings points. Not that that's likely, but he played 34 minutes last game, so we are finally seeing the playing time ramp up a bit. And then Miles Bridges playing 35, 36 minutes a night. I was having this conversation with somebody on Twitter. I'm not sold on Bridges at this price tag, but it doesn't have anything to do with Bridges. I think if Bridges continues to get the opportunities that he's gotten to this point this year, he's going to be a very, very good fantasy option at that salary because he's a good player and he's contributing in every category. My concerns are Rozier missed several games. Ball had a lot of games where he wasn't playing his full minutes. Hayward is basically taking a back seat offensively. Do all of these things, does Hayward keep only having a 20.7% usage rate? Does LaMelo keep having a bunch of games where he only plays 30 minutes? Does Terry Rozier continue to have a 22% usage rate? So my concerns aren't with Bridges. It's with what do his teammates do as the sample size gets bigger. It's hard for me to think that Bridges continues to have a 25% usage rate going forward. If he does, he's going to be great. Still has, a high ceiling. He's rebounding well. He's picking up assists. My concern is just that there's been so many just kind of fluky things with Charlotte so far that have potentially benefited him that I think he's a little bit overpriced.
No complaints. I thought I was going to get to a little bit more Charlotte here, but tough spot against Golden State. Good defense. Good total, though. I mean, this is the highest total game on the slate. That Rozier price is just broken on FanDuel. I love it. All right, we'll go to Golden State now. Starters, and that's about it. Curry, 10 to 15% owned. I actually call it 11 to 18% owned on DK and FanDuel. Draymond's about 12% owned. Wiggins is 12 to 17. Jordan Poole is 24% owned on FanDuel. That's not one that I'm really trying to get to with that sort of ownership. What do you want to do with Golden State? Because I feel like they look weird today.
I mean, I think Draymond looks good at 7,100. I think Curry looks good at 11,1. It's, an expensive price tag, but there is a lot of value on this slate. You should be able to pay up for him pretty easily. Having, a big year, no surprise there. 5,900 for Poole, 6,200 for Wiggins. I think they're pretty much just priced where they should be. It kind of reminds me of how I feel about Cleveland, where I don't necessarily think that I just jam in a bunch of Draymond and no Wiggins or anything, but I think that I just end up with a Golden State player in a lot of lineups. Not saying to, I'm going to set a rule or anything, but I just think it ends up working out that way, where there's four guys really with Curry, Green, Wiggins, and Poole that look like good plays, not best play on the slate type plays, but just good plays at their salaries. And so I think that I'll just have a lot of lineups that end up with one of those guys.
All right. Anything else for Golden State?
Nope.
Closing it out. Again, guys, hit that like button. 153. You guys must not have heard me when I asked before. There are 500 of you that have not done this yet. Help us out, man. Hit that thumbs up. We can be north of 200, no problem. Pelicans at the Sacramento Kings. 5.5 point total on this one. 218 total. Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones, both status up in the air. Ingram didn't play yesterday, was doubtful, didn't go through shoot around. I'm not expecting Ingram. Herb Jones took an elbow during the game, concussion symptoms. We will not know anything on him for a little bit. We don't have actual injury report designations on these guys yet because they played yesterday. Joval, 9% owned on FanDuel, 17 on DraftKings. If he's 9% owned on FanDuel, I'm going to have a lot more. This dude is smashing. He's rebounding everything. He's scoring. He's the whole team, especially when Ingram's not there. He's just going to get to do what he wants. So one of my favorite plays of the day relative to salary or relative to ownership, Joval. Happy to get to some Devontae Graham or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or even some Josh Hart. You would think there'd be a lot more for the Pelicans here, but they're actually just not very good.
Yeah, they've been pretty bad offensively this year, but I'm with you on Joval. The minutes are there. He played 35 minutes last night. We just continue to see him play huge minutes. He's averaging about 34 minutes per game this year. He is, at least going into yesterday's games, he was second in the NBA in rebound chances per game. Doubt that decreased after yesterday. He's averaging 1.33 DraftKings points per minute. You get a bump in usage if Ingram is out as well, which, so he would look even better. He's at 1.47 DraftKings points per minute in 116 minutes without Ingram on the floor. He just looks like a good option here. What?
Aaron Rodgers, COVID, out against the Chiefs for week 9.
Oh, God. Is Adams back?
I don't know.
No, the Packers just going to be ugly. But yeah, I mean, if Ingram's out, you get a bump in usage to Alexander Walker and Devontae Graham as well. But either way, I prefer Graham to Alexander Walker. He's just more involved as a playmaker. He's got a little bit higher usage rate this year. Josh Hart at 4,900, I think, is reasonable as a last piece in. He's played at least 30 minutes in his last couple of games. No real priorities for me from New Orleans outside of Joval. And even that, priorities kind of being used loosely, not because I don't love Joval, but because there's 100 centers that I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Sacramento side, it's possible that the better center option is just on Sacramento. Rashawn Holmes, 7,600 on FanDuel, 6,300 on DraftKings. Another guy just in that range, but I think he looks really good there. Most owned guy on DK for Sacramento is Rashawn Holmes. We also have De'Aaron Fox pulling a ton of ownership again on FanDuel, 7,700. I'm going straight back. He was shitty in the first half yesterday. I think he had 7 fantasy points. I was ready to punch somebody in the face. Woke up to him having 37 or 38, so he recovered, but he was one of the bigger stands that I had yesterday. did not work out the way that I wanted it to. So I assume the De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Maxey backcourt is going to be the one you're looking for on FanDuel today. What do you want to do with the Kings?
Yeah, I mean, going right back to Holmes at 6,300, just another really good center option that stands out. Played 32 minutes yesterday, had an injury scare, but obviously came back, closed out the game, played 32.7 minutes. He's rebounded at a really high level so far this year. His average playing time is a little bit deceiving also. There was, I don't remember the exact circumstances, but he had a game or two where he just played like a lot fewer minutes than he normally would, whether it was foul trouble or blowout, I don't remember, but or injury. But in competitive games, you're typically getting 30 to 32 minutes from him. He has averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute, 18.4% rebounding percentage is really good to see. So 6,300 for Holmes looks like a really, really good play. Fox at 8,500 on DraftKings is just another point guard in that bucket of guys where, yeah, they're really talented. They can have big games, but nothing really stands out. I agree with you that he's really underpriced on FanDuel. He has struggled this year, only 0.96 DraftKings points per minute, but he's another one of these guys where he has a 42.5% true shooting percentage. I don't have the 3-point percentage in front of me, but I know I had looked a game or two ago and he was shooting like 17% or something from three, whereas last year he was about 33%. So just another guy where, you know, as by the end of the season, you probably totally forgot that this start even happened, and he's just at his normal numbers. So I think that there's more upside to Fox than you would think by looking at his game logs, but still difficult to prioritize at that salary for me on DraftKings.
Sum it up for me, man. Who are your favorite plays for today?
Really like Embiid, really like Holmes. God, they're all centers. Holmes, Embiid, Jokic, Valanciunas. All of them.
You're gonna get a lot there. You're not even done there. There's so many more.
Yeah, I know.
Even Steven Adams too.
Yeah, Towns. I mean, I don't think we even mentioned Towns outside of like passing, but like there's.
How do you like? I mean, it's loaded, dude. Loaded.
Yeah, there's so many centers. As far as value goes, another center in Hartenstein, but Svi Mikhailuk, assuming he starts again at 3,700, looks really good. Malik Beasley looks really good as a value option. You mentioned Adams a second ago. I like Jalen Suggs in tournaments. I like getting. I'm going to be there when he finally has a good game, I hope. Yeah, there's a lot of good plays too.
Yeah, on the FanDuel side for me, Luke. These are the guys that I have the most of right now: Luka, Joval, Embiid, Lillard, Rozier, Malik Beasley, Jared Allen, De'Aaron Fox, Dinwiddie at no ownership, Reggie Jackson, Mobley. And there's just like, I didn't even mention all the guys that are chalk: OG Anunoby, Mo Bamba, Gary Trent, Anthony Edwards, Jordan Poole. There's fun slate. Sorry, I'm going to miss it. Adam, anything else? Deep dive later today, deeper dive at 4:45?
Yep, both of those coming out. Also, I was curious, so I just quickly pulled it up. Embiid still leads the NBA with 10 post-ups per game, 4 more than the next closest guy. That's 2 less than last year, but you know, still I'm not concerned about Embiid, just to reiterate that.
Well, that'll do it, everybody. Thank you for joining us. 197 likes. If you haven't done it yet, hit it so that we can get north of 200. Tons of content coming up for the rest of the day. NFL Strategy Show Ownership Edition coming up next. Good luck. Win some money. I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Don't look for anything else. But Adam will be back for the Strategy Show. I won't be here. Peace.